My God, Abby, this episode was, I laughed so much,
Oh,
right?
this conversation. So Jennifer Blaine is our guest, and she is so funny. I had such a good time, and it was so impactful. There are like some really incredible tools in here.
You know, one thing she said that I really touched me so deeply is she was quoting someone from her going to school. I forget who it was, but someone said, when you get people to laugh, they will listen.
Yes.
And I was like, it really stopped me in my tracks of like, she's right. When people are funny, you pay attention, and God, is she funny. So
it was such a beautiful example of how we bring play into all of these moments, uncomfortable, big, silly, new.
I was attached to her. As she was talking, I could see my face even coming closer and closer.
Yeah, me too.
Really listen in. So really, this one, listen in, people. That was really, really fun.
Good morning, and good morning, Jennifer and Soph. And I'm so delighted to have you with us today, Jennifer. Your experience as a comedian, a performer, a person who does improv, but who's also familiar with Gay and my work. So I get to see different concepts, brought into performance rather than into a coaching situation. And that's always great fun as well. So delighted to have you join us today to talk about many things.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with both of you. I was playing as many podcasts of yours as I could to kind of catch up. And so I feel like I'm right in like a huddle with both of you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for your generous listening there.
I actually wanted to also say that because Katie and I have been acquainted for 28 years, and Sophie, we're just meeting right now, that I just thought I could tell a story that might connect us a little bit as well, which is that, okay, cool. So I'm the child of public school teachers. And so growing up, my mom had this great thirst for adventure, and so did my dad. And so we would swap houses in order to travel the world. And I actually put a line about that in one of my shows, which is called The Vicissitudes of Travel, which is about a family traveling through a brain surgery. And the mother character says, it was the 70s. While other people swapped sex partners, we swapped houses. You get to go on an adventure and you don't catch venereal disease. And so we end up in France in this little town called Mézières-en-Gâtine, which is near, I want to say, Parthenay.
Okay.
And I know no French. And I'm paired with this girl, and we go on a bike ride, and she's showing me everything, and I can't keep up with her. Her cardio is formidable, and I just don't know what to do. And so finally, I just blurt out, "Je suis fatiguée," which I knew no French.
Where did that come from? Because
I don't know. I don't know where it came from. But I was thinking that's such a central piece of how I be is it's almost like from the whole environment, whatever is needed, I somehow pull through and radiate out. And so I just wanted to say that's the extent of my French, but
for those of you who don't know, she just said, I am tired, which is very appropriate to what was happening.
Right, and always a great one. If you're going to pull one out, your sweet fatigué is.
It's a good one. It's funny, Jennifer, because I do not know you well. I've read a little bit about you, but even the way you introduced yourself to us, you were just telling us that there was construction right behind you, and we offered to possibly postpone, and you were like, I welcome an obstacle. Please, tell us about how did you do that? Because it was really spontaneously Trooper. I like it.
Thank you. You know, I attribute that to a term I like to call creative abrasion. And there's a wonderful story about James Lapine and Stephen Sondheim. So James Lapine would often direct most of Stephen Sondheim's work. And so it would come to preview week, and James Lapine would have everything set, and everyone would know what they were doing. And Stephen Sondheim would still be making notes and making changes all the way up to opening night. And they called it creative abrasion because James Lapine really would have preferred to just let be done. But Stephen Sondheim was like, until we open, I'm going to keep doing stuff. So,
Wow.
yeah, I endeavor to give myself notes
All the way.
and keep kind of,
It also
finding the
sounds
edge.
like the creative engine is always going, and that you're using whatever is happening around you as fuel for your own creativity. And I love observing that aspect of you over the years, but also the way that you involve whoever you're with, whether it's a performance or you're, with people and, in a gathering. I see you doing that. It's like drawing, it's almost like drawing the rain. You're kind of a rainmaker where you show up, creativity really occurs. One of the things you've done so many things, over the years, all of which are just wondrously, some of them just amazing one person shows and, all of these creative things. So I encourage people to take a look at your website, which will link to the podcast. But one of the current things that you're doing is incorporating public coaching with your performance. And I would just love to hear how that's been going in terms of, are you experiencing some new creativity from that, some new engagement for people, to be able to foster their own creativity as a part of a show rather than just, receiving, so there's this interaction. So I just love to hear more about that.
Yeah, I absolutely am enjoying doing these. I have a series of shows called Getting Creative, where I do some performance, usually an absurd character rendition of a real person or not a real person. So like Susie Orman comes out and shames everyone about their money situation. and then I tell some stories about myself. And then I have my characters give prompts to the audience, and they actively blurt things at me. So they're actually, Katie, certain things you taught me decades ago. For instance, doing something wrong on purpose as a way to get free and feel more permission. And I do that notion, that concept, with a character I have named Danny, who goes around, and when I originally made him, it was that he was a guy on a low spiritual path. And so he was always looking for a date, and he was saying the most ridiculous things. And so he says really offensive pickup lines. And because it's so bad, people in the audience will blurt back at him, which is like so exciting because, think of all the moments we have been harassed or catcalled or just messed with. And then it's sort of the shock of it. We might not say anything. But in the context of a performance, people are liberated to say things back. So he'll be like, yeah, I would love to take you to the movies, Katie, but nowadays they don't let you bring in your own snacks. And people can come back with their own retorts. And then after that, I have people practice saying something wrong with each other. So then they pair off right then and there and just play with that. It's actually okay to say something wrong or off color. I mean, and people really start, the energy of the room grows, and it's a joy to watch people get free.
And I love how you're incorporating the co-creativity, that can emerge in any kind of performance and really in any interaction. It was reminding me of what I call presence connect play, and that your play with especially having people do things that are outside of the norm, I think is so incredibly freeing for everybody's creativity.
Mhm.
Do people
Yeah.
come knowing that's going to be the dynamic, or does it happen kind of spontaneously, or is it described as such, or?
For that series, people do have an idea that it will be interactive,
Mhm.
but sometimes people come and they really don't. And I also say if you don't want to even pair off and talk with someone else, you don't have to.
Mhm.
So it's really, choose your own adventure of what level of participating people want to do.
It reminds me going to there was a French comedian who really wanted to break it into the American market when, at some point he was very successful in France. So I went to see him here in America, and he's speaking in English, and he doesn't have all the words. And I'm French, I speak good English. And so as he's doing his thing, he's like, qu'est-ce que c'est ce mot? Like he's like struggling with the word. And so I throw the word at him, and then he's like, oh, that's very kind. Thank you. What do you do? And I'm like, I'm a coach. I work with people. And he like lays down and he's like, let me tell you about my life. And he just like totally jumps on what I said. And I remember it, which was so funny. I can't even translate for you exactly how it went down, but it was just like a minute and a half of just like totally improving. And I remember thinking, what if I had said I'm a fisherwoman, or I'm a dentist, or like what would have happened? Like, just watching him just take the ball and run with it was just so delicious.
Yeah.
I love that whole aspect of freedom and permission in your work, and also your range of characters, and how you occupy them. And I'm remembering that part of the entertainment during COVID was having you be reading from a book as a particular character. Which was your favorite character to read during COVID?
So that's a great question. Boy, favorite. So there were a couple reasons why I did that. One was, yeah, we're all stuck at home. The other was I read recently that Americans read an average of one book a year now. And I thought, well, if at least I'm sitting there reading a book, it sends a message that, this is a possibility, And so I loved reading Raising Trump by Ivana Trump, because she is so ridiculous. And the whole, meet cute with Donald was so absurd, but she takes herself so seriously. But I also really loved doing Bernie Sanders. Um,
Oh, I don't think I've heard Bernie Sanders. Could you do a little Bernie Sanders, please?
Yeah. So from more recently, he has been saying, if you want to change the country, I'm not going to do it. Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez is not going to do it. You're going to do it, But I really liked reading his book, and I'm a very distant relative of his. Yeah, that's what happens when you're in the tribe of being a Jew. If you go back enough, I think it's like 30 degrees of separation between us. So I also enjoyed reading and feeling connected to my cousin.
Were you always were you that kid in school that everybody like? Were you always that funny? Like, what was it?
Oh my gosh, that is such a great question. No, not at all. So what it is that my grandfather used to tell me dirty jokes.
Of course.
When I was very little, and I had no idea what they were. And so I'd go off and I'd tell them, and I'd get a big laugh, and I didn't know what was going on. And then I told a story in second grade, The Black Cat by Edgar Allan Poe. And that was my first time acting. And because I got to play this really dark character, and I was this little girl and very quiet and a real observer, as many artists are, I just couldn't believe the shock that I was able to generate in the audience, that surprise of that could come out of me. And so that's what had me want to even be a performer. And then I fell in love with this incredible performer named Denitra Vance, who was the very first Black woman cast member on Saturday Night Live. And she would do these solo shows, and her thing was, if you can get people laughing, then you can actually get them listening. And that really affected my trajectory of my work, because I'm actually really like mining serious issues, but people are more apt to focus if there are laughs in there as well.
Boy, that is so profound. It's really like an opening rather than coming in like, I have something to teach you, and there's something fundamentally wrong with you, and we're going to change that. You know, the whole aspect of play and giving permission, especially to give permission to do things outside of the box, you know, I think really allows you not only to do your artistry, but it invites other people to open up to theirs as well, which I've seen so much in your presence.
Thank you.
Cool. That is really, really cool. When I was in Paris debating what career I wanted, I went to a training to become a clown, because why not? And this lady, Mush was her name, Mush. And I know. She was like little and had this really sparkly face, and was a super interesting woman. And one of the exercises we would do as an improv was to get out of the room, and we were supposed to come back and do something that was like so dramatic that she would want to get up, like she'd want to come and solve it or help or do something. And so I get out, and I'm sitting outside, and I can't really figure out what to do, and I'm just like, I'm getting a little anxious, and I decide it will be there. It will just be there. I'm just going to come in. I don't have any particular lead. I'm just going to get in there. And I open the door so strongly that it actually breaks the window. For real. And so I like bend in half, and I'm like, ow, and I'm like, my fingers hurt, and absolutely not. But she got up to like help me, thinking my fingers were bleeding. And I looked at her and I was like, aha.
Gotcha.
I like it so much. Like, really, I mean, I'm not a performer for a career, but I just love this, like, let's catch what's going on and make something out of it. It was really
I love that also, that it was so real for you that it becomes real for someone else.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think that that's really exciting about creativity as well, because I find sometimes even as creative as I am, I might be stuck in just what I can conceive of. But when I hear other people's stories, or I even see their art, and that's what actually gets me going into what else is possible.
Yes, I love hearing that. And I was just forming the question of, or what you have found to be the easiest and the most friendly way to help people expand their own creativity, their own ability to improv. Because in my opinion, that's the big human skill that we need, is being able to improv with what's happening, to improv with the unknown. And so, because you've had so much experience with that, I wonder, you know, what your recommendation would be for the friendliest way for people to expand their own improv.
You know, I really appreciate that question so much. And I noticed my mind wanting to do like conventional things that I know you both have already heard, like yes and which is so powerful, right? But actually what came up as you were speaking is the gaze that I feel I bring when I'm listening to people. And it's that it's actually okay. Meaning their truth is okay. Meaning this impulse that they have is okay. That it's possible to just be with that as the first thing, because that's their truth.
Yeah, I love that. It's for us because our show is Be, Play, Love. And we talk about, and the be that you're talking about with your gaze. It's also what I would call your presence, that your presence is so inviting. And so however it is, you're up for, but also relating directly to what is, rather than I'm going to wait until you get to the serious stuff, or when you but you're right away in that here we are together, and what's wanting to happen.
Yes. What's wanting to happen, I think once we do that first piece, then there's the second one, which is, well, do you already know really what you want to say, or what you want to express, or what you want to experience? And I do find that people often do have that innate knowing already. It's more of either, people might say confidence part, like, is it okay that I do want this, or a logistical issue, like, but how could I ever? And so if we have those two pieces, then it starts being this terrain of really inventing and entering into the unknown.
It's like a creative journey that you start off together, like here we are, and then you step off into the unknown, and then the journey is this, back and forth with the play, that you foster.
It's fascinating because as I translate most things into pickleball lately, I was playing this weekend with a guy that judges himself so loud. He's not speaking it, but it is so loud inside his head that I cannot not hear it. It's like every ball, it's just so intense, right? You know what I'm saying? Like you can hear someone's thinking a little bit. And I was playing with him, and I was really like not free. I was just really, I was feeling the judgment exactly. Like for those of you who are not looking, like Katie just kind of became really small and kind of like reduced like to a little ball. And it very much felt like that. I was just, it's almost like I didn't want to poke that he would maybe judge me as harsh as he's judging himself or something. And then we switched to like played with this other guy. And when you said the word gaze, because he didn't say anything, but he would look at me like if I missed a ball, there was so much love and so much like, I understand when you miss the ball, it's kind of a little, whatever. Like I felt so seen. I played better than I have ever played. And it might be obvious to the trained eye that when we're supported, it works better. But it was dramatic. Like to what degree the space that he gave me and the gaze that he had towards me, both people not talking, funny enough. Like neither one of them were commenting that much. It was just the presence. One presence was accepting and the other presence was judging. And boy, did I play better with the accepting one.
Yeah, my sense is that that people think of themselves as not creative. And so they go to a performance to get some, it's sort of like consume some, but it doesn't, they don't think, oh, but not me. I'm just going to consume it. But that sense of putting all the responsibility for play on the performer, rather than we're all in improv in one way or another in our lives. And so I'm curious too about how you have seen people directly benefit in their lives from being a part of a performance that you've done.
I love how you just described all that dynamic, because I also sense that there's a way we're all impacting one another. So that is a goal for me always. So I went to Wesleyan University in Middletown, Connecticut, and took a lot of theater classes there. I was a gender studies major, but did a lot of theater. And one of my favorite professors, Mark Wade, said that our goal is to touch one person in the audience. And really with theater, the whole point is to like change lives. Like the stakes are very high. And so I really do enter the performance space with that intention. And part of what I have discovered, have created is for instance, with my show about the family traveling through the brain surgery, is when I performed it for pre-med students, one of them said to me, I want to be a neurosurgeon now because of your show. And now she is in medical school on a track to be a neurosurgeon. Now, I created the piece because I wanted to work through grief about a family member having a brain tumor, and how a seismic event really impacts the whole family. And so there's this process of me wanting to be true to my expression and my artistic drive, but then also I don't know how that's going to, and then pairing that with I want to affect someone, I want to help someone, I want to reach someone, and but then I don't know how that then is going to play out. And so I've had people start writing. I've worked in a women's prison in Connecticut, a maximum security prison, and I had one of my students said I never would speak in public. I would never get up and say anything, and now I'm going to all the time because now I have my voice. So there's the feeling in the room, actually, that's palpable as well. So there are these individual folks impacts, but then there's also this way in which it ripples through as well. So in one of my Getting Creative shows, someone turned to someone else after the show and said, my parents are so intolerant to my husband because they don't agree with his politics. And someone else overheard that, and they said, I just want to say, I really care about that you're going through that, and I'd like to give you a hug. They hadn't even had a moment of, in the prompts to talk to each other. It was like three people overhearing something and then feeling a certain amount of permission to express care. So there's a wide range of things that happen. And then I think the other sort of more typical thing is people will say, I really want to get up and perform. I really want to start my photography business. I can now see that it's okay for me to lead with my expression, my creativity, because I see you doing it.
That must be incredibly satisfying for you.
It is because, with our work, the work you trained me in so many years ago, it was all about essence. And for me, that's my creative aliveness.
Yes. And what I'm hearing is that because you're so engaged with it and in such a flowing way, that it can meet whatever is going on, because you don't go, oh no, not that. You go, oh, okay. So the whole welcoming and including, and then it's an adventure of discovery for everybody, for you, and then the discovery in itself turns you on. The being in discovery is so satisfying in itself, and then to be able to kind of activate that in others, that's just like the essence of essence, and it just must be just slurping up, kind of satisfying.
It's funny because as Jennifer was talking, Katie, I was thinking about you and how must it feel that you have all these children of yours in the world that have, there's so many, every time someone comes on the show, people have met through you. How does it feel to know that you've ignited so many people to do their own expression? Because you really at the heart of a lot of us. creating? Like, tell me about that.
Well, it makes me, I feel teary,
Mhm.
sort of, I cry a lot more these days. And so I just let that happen. But for me, it releases a need to have people experience their own beauty and their own magic. So to me, it's just a big celebration.
Mhm. That's really beautiful. I mean, I don't know, Jennifer, if you can relate to that, but I wouldn't be who I am without you. There isn't that many people I mean, a few have influenced me, but there really aren't that many that I feel has built my bone structure as much as you have. So it's quite I'm celebrating with Jennifer right now that we've been,
Yeah,
affected by you that way.
I so appreciate you bringing this up, Sophie. I was thinking about that and how you changed my life, and
Mm.
that in like really like a pillar of my life. I'd say being a product of my parents and my family and certain principles about inclusivity and education and making a difference in the world. With Gay and Katie's, well, let's raise the energy. Let's see what else is possible. And then my theater work, I think, really make me who I am. So I'm so very grateful.
Mm. And that gratitude, that the whole attitude of being grateful and appreciating, you so exude that, that kind of precedes you into a room, and those kind of living principles, um, because they come through your creativity and your presence, but also your invitation. It's always an invitation to co-create. To me, that's the model of how I think we go forward as humans, is to care for each other and to give permission to experiment about what's really wanting to happen rather than what's
Mm.
wrong. And I love it that we start with being, let's do it wrong. And then so that we don't have to worry about trying to get permission. And then it's just pure what can happen here.
The one thing I have yet to um totally take on that I would love to also take on is I love disappearing into personas in order to free my voice. And I do notice that some audience members will play with a character of mine, like Bill the Body Piercer. They will be him because like he hangs out with the anarchists because the anarchists are so organized. And so people will sometimes do the voices, but there is this one little thing in the back of my mind. I'm not sure when I might do it, but I'm really interested also in maybe if we could play with all our personas, especially shadowy ones, more.
Yeah.
And I do find that not so much in performance, but more private, sometimes people will let me play with a sticking point they have by taking on a persona, a voice, and go further with it, right? Like that whole do it more, exaggerate it thing to free us. Because I also feel like that would also do a lot for bringing wholeness and peace.
I agree. I agree too. The whole going further and bringing things out of that you consider a shadow, or a bad part of you, but to bring that out and to have that be accepted as yes. I have that aspect, and to bring that into wholeness rather than I can't ever share that with anybody.
I just realized I actually did write it into the show I'm working on now. So I guess I am going to do that. But I needed to hear you say that to realize, oh, wait, yeah, there is an
Yeah.
opportunity to do that. Yeah. I mean, to both embody it more myself, but also have it be a prompt
Right.
for the audience. Yeah.
Yes, I love that, and I hear that you're always, and this is my experience also, is that I'm in discovery. I have not arrived. Like, this is my shtick. I was just remembering being in college, and the professor got up. There were like 400 of us in the audience, and he started speaking, and I knew that this was a lecture that he had given like probably 200 times, and I could hear it. Like he was just delivering something that he learned a long time ago.
I want to go.
Yeah. But to hear discovery, to be in the presence of discovery, I think that is one of the most delicious prompts and one of the most delicious gifts that we can give to whether it's in performance or whether it's in the dialogue with a friend. And that's one of the things I really celebrate about you, Jennifer, is that you live in discovery and people can osmose that from you.
Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
I was thinking that there are walls. Like part of what the new piece I'm working on now is about project management, because that's really sexy.
I think it is.
But also like getting stopped. But then it's about what it takes to move through each breakdown, because we're all doing project management all the time. So it's kind of like a wall, and then there isn't a wall, right? Then that thing you said, it like,
yes,
something shifts.
Yeah. And to have the possibility of having something shift, even if it seems impossible, to have experience of that, I think that, is part of the depth of what allows people to find their creativity, because they can feel, sense, relate, but it activates them as well. And so, your performances are not just where someone says, "Oh, well, that was good. I like that. Now let's go have popcorn." That it lives in them too. So you're like a Johnny Appleseed of improv.
Well, I loved when you said earlier that when you make people laugh, you actually inviting listening. Because another thing that I was noticing talking to both of you is these pause. Like when you finish, I haven't prepared what I want to say next. I'm listening. We're all listening to each other. And so there's natural, but to trust that there will be something maybe that I want to say, or maybe not, but to just be comfortable. Like, how many people listen with already what they're not listening, they're just preparing, jump in and say what they want to say without enriching themselves from what the other person is saying. And I was just really loving sitting here. Just actually, you made me laugh, and I was truly present and listening, maybe even more than usual. It was really special.
That's so
I was
cool.
just having the image of a mixing bowl, that we're making something, and someone says, maybe a little bit more of a cinnamon, and it's that, and so that we're available for mixing, and then who knows what will be, generated out of that.
Oh my gosh. So I love what you're saying, Sophie and Katie. This piece about listening is so sacred to me, because like, especially in light of AI and like almost like anticipating what someone's going to need and then like having something, right? Like we already were doing that, but now worse. And one of the things I love is listening to the other person, because if I'm really listening to the other person, it trains me to think and be with what's actually going to be for them or something about them. And that whole thing about like, and maybe I don't have a response. Like my favorite checkout person at Whole Foods is a film aficionado, and he'll tell me about really interesting films, and I'll just listen to his perspective about it. And I feel, I am, like you said, I feel presenced by it. I also think that because I listen to so many different people, it makes me more creative as a thinker. And I love that feeling.
Yes, the the expansion of the possible point of view, possible gateways. I was once hearing that that humor, one of the forms of humor is the lateral move. So the completely out of, marshmallows. So there's just something that comes in. And when you're listening to different people, I think you're getting access to all of these different like rooms inside where there are riches and treasures to be brought up. And Jung is often, he talked about the personality as being a house with different rooms in it. And my sense is that you take us on this journey into all of these different possible rooms where different things can occur.
I love that.
Wow. I want to be in a room with both of you and cook. I want to mix cinnamon and play. I mean, it's funny, as I was listening to this last part, Katie, I was also a little bit sad. Like there are a good amount of people that don't play in that field. They've really, you can tell maybe that guy who was, citing the same speech for the 200th time, it's like, it's almost kind of the fear that if it's not that, then what, and not in a joyful way. Like, I feel like the three of us would be like, then what? Like, what else is there? But a lot of people are not, then what? It's more like they stay in the trail that they've carved, that feels safe. And it's, maybe I love what we're doing because I think some of these conversations really spark that people may want to add a little more cinnamon and play with others a little bit more.
I was also hearing that, go ahead, Jen.
I was just thinking, and the permission now with these different notions that we've all brought up to kind of treat life like these pieces that I've been doing where I'm breaking the fourth wall and we're just all here together, with that next stodgy, dry professor or whatever that we notice being in a sort of closed space. If we did greet them, engage them with some toss, right? And I do that. And like sometimes I'll toss to someone and it really doesn't go anywhere, but it's almost like the joy of still trying.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of am the beneficiary of that, even if it fails. And one of my favorite things in performance is to try things and be okay about it not working. And sort of the frankness of like there it was, and because that happened, then people kind of are okay with whatever might come next. Like it's like, well, that's interesting.
Yes, rather than that's scary. My thought was that the way that you presence and that you invite people really allows them to move through their fear. Into the unknown, into the possibility. And that's one thing that I love about your presence, but also about your presentations, that however people come, they're going to be introduced to more aliveness and more possibilities, and they can't really escape it if they're in the room. It's like, I got you now.
I love that. I have a friend. Oh, sorry, Sue.
No, please, you go.
Okay, so I had this friend once, that's just a silly thing, but it reminds me, a friend of mine went on a tour once in Germany, and she said, you were on the tour, but you had to pay to leave. You had to pay to exit.
Wow.
That's funny.
Yeah. And I created a character based on that would say spooky all the time.
Say that again.
Spooky. Life is spooky, like the moment of birth when you are thrust through the vaginal canal and must compromise your bone structure simply to emerge. But yet later in life, when you try to dance a tango, you're thrown into a frenzy, which is very spooky.
It's funny because when you were describing, when maybe you toss something at someone and it doesn't land, you even call that like it fails. And I wonder if that's even an interesting frame because, for all we know, maybe they walk away looking still a little grumpy, but you don't know what happened. Like maybe they go home and somehow, maybe we don't call them failures. Maybe it doesn't land the way we saw it, but,
That is
for all we
so
know.
brilliant and awesome. That is so genius. Fantastic. Wait. Soph, wait.
I'm going to write it down.
That, yes, that. Right.
Mhm.
Well, my
Yeah.
sense is that that's a bing.
That's a wrap. This is a perfect way
And
to stop.
could keep talking all day. Such a joy to
Such a joy. Oh my God, Jennifer. I was like, when we have a guest, I'm always like, oh, that's going to be fun. And then this was fun. This was really fun. Thank you.
yeah,
so
thanks for
much.
being so much fun, and also just for the gift that you are and that you bring to the world. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Mm.
Thank you so much. Likewise.
I was going to say, what you bring to the world, we can mirror that back to you, Katie Boo. Right back at you.
Right back at you.
Thank you.